All right, we are now recording, so everything you say can and will be used for knowledge for the future. It's very exciting. So we're going to go ahead and launch our first poll. If everybody could go ahead and answer these questions, that would be super amazing. And we're just looking to find out what your guys' knowledge base is walking in so that our panelists kind of have an idea of what's going on. So everyone is muted and all cameras are off except for the panelists and myself. So our three questions that we have is on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is no information and 10 is all the information. How much do you know about habitat design and signage design careers? Is our first question. Yeah, that is our question. Just kidding. Numbers are still coming in. We're about halfway there. If you guys could all vote for me, fill out the poll, that would be fantastic. This is good practice for you. You should always be voting your whole entire lives whenever possible. Brooklyn, I don't know why it's not letting you submit. Interesting. Okay, we're just going to do another minute on the poll. So if you could just take a second and let us know on a scale of 1 to 10 how much you know about habitat design and signage design. That would be super fantastic. These are important career things to know. Okay, we'll give it another 5 seconds and then we're going to close the poll. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. And I will share the results. So it looks like everybody is right around a 4 of knowledge. So panelists, share your awesomeness. We will go from there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're on a pretty tight schedule today. As I said, my name is Shelley from the Akron Zoo. I am your moderator. If you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A section, and we will take all the questions at the end. But if you want to type it so you don't forget, totally fine. Go with it. So our first speaker today is Mike Clifford, and he is going to tell us everything that he knows.
Yeah.
Just kidding. No pressure.
I mean, sure, 10 minutes. That covers it. I think my knowledge base I can do in 10 minutes. Well, hey, it's great to be here with y'all and super excited just to kind of share a little bit of the journey that I've got. So currently I do function as the curator of innovation and partnerships for GLMB Zoos. So I actually work for an architecture firm based in Wichita, Kansas that designs zoo habitats and zoo exhibits for zoos and aquariums all across the United States. So I play a couple of different roles at the firm. My background, I was actually a zookeeper for 7 years. I lived in Africa after that, working as a wild animal transfer specialist. So working with large herds, rhinos, stock, stuff like that in Africa to try to maintain healthy genetic variation and stuff out in the wild. And then I came back to the States and through a series of other fun journeys, ended up with GLMB Zoos doing zoo design. So there's really kind of 3 major roles that I play for our company or for our team. So I do exhibit design. Our team has probably about 30 different habitat projects going on at any given time, ranging from master plans, which is kind of a where is the zoo going to be in the next 15 to 20 years. So I help with a lot of those programs all the way to, I think the largest project we have right now is a $40 million habitat design project, which is about a third of the campus for the whole zoo. So we work with, for exhibit design specifically, we probably have about 45, 50 clients across the United States, including the incredible Akron Zoo in Northeast Ohio. So I get to be up with the Akron team quite a bit. So they're great people. And so I do that. And then the other role is I oversee an initiative called ECHO, which is an ongoing conversation about the future of aquariums, zoos, and conservation. And so my job, which I absolutely love, is I am supposed to go out and find brilliant people that have nothing to do with zoos or aquariums, invite them into the conversation to help challenge the way that we think about our industry and the work that we do and how we accomplish it. So we've had people from NASA, NASA scientists that do biomimicry research be a part of our conversations. We've had globally recognized photographers as part of our conversations. We've had people that are experts on storytelling. We've had people that are experts on slow television, which was one of my favorites from a long time ago. But all these different crazy, weird, cool ideas, and then we integrate that into what the future of zoos and aquariums is going to be. And with that program, so with our ECHO initiative, we actually have over 180 zoos and aquariums that are a part of that conversation every single month. So I'm incredibly privileged to be able to hear all of these different wild and crazy and cool thoughts that at the end of the day work to make us more impactful at the role that we serve in our communities, and the role that we serve to preserve species and and take care of animals and ensure they have a long, thriving life, either here or in the wild. So that's a little bit of what I do. Our mission as GLMV Zoos and our team is that we really partner alongside zoos and aquariums to help realize their mission. So our mission is a little interesting in that we are always striving to be the most thoughtful, the most creative, and the most innovative and impactful we can be with every single exhibit design, every concept, and all the different projects that we touch. And then what's just really, really cool about our job is I can start in the morning by talking about a new anaconda habitat and cool waterfalls and things that are going to happen. And I might end the day talking about how are we going to get these couple of rhinos to move from here to there without spending too much money. Because some of these things are actually very expensive, believe it or not. But Chris Norman will talk about that. So anyways, it's an honor and a privilege the way that we get to partner alongside and think of crazy ideas. One thing that was kind of cool, just of recent, I was trying to think of like what are cool examples of things we've done. So right now, actually at the Living Desert, which is in Palm Desert, California, kind of by San Diego. So we're getting ready to start building a new African habitat. And the carnivore section, one of the things that we always have to be really concerned with and aware of in zoo design is safety of not only the animals, but of the staff and of the public. And so when we're doing lions and hyenas, one of the things to be aware of is we just want to make sure that there's very few instances of an animal getting out. That's an honest part of zoo design. And so what's super cool, this will be the first place we're doing it, but we've created an entire new shift structure. So a shift structure is the way we move animals through different areas. We've created a new shift structure that actually has a 0% chance of failure rate. So it's impossible for a door to ever open and allow a lion to get out into a keeper area or a public area. So very cool. Just this will be the first time launching it, and it's part of kind of the innovation spectrum that we do. But just as an example, something that's really applicable to the future of kind of our work. So outside of that, to kind of hit a couple other things. So my background, my bachelor's is actually in zoo science. I got my bachelor's degree in taking care of exotic animals in professional settings. I got it through Friends University in Wichita, Kansas. I didn't want to go to school to just study. I wanted to do hands-on work. And when I was 15 years old, I started working in maintenance at the Cleveland Metro Park Zoo, just up the road from Akron, actually. So I started really young, and I had already been doing animal type work. And so I wanted to get a degree that would allow me to still do hands-on work while I was earning my bachelor's. And then my master's a couple of years later was in organization development and change design, which probably sounds very boring. It's actually super cool. And everything that we do is all about change. And so we always have change to deal with in the world. And so that's kind of my degree path. And then kind of, I guess, a couple other things just to throw in with my last couple minutes here. But for me, as I mentioned, my journey started when I was 15. It actually started a little bit before that. I thought I wanted to be a vet. And so I shadowed some veterinary offices and realized that I hated it because every animal you see is sick and I didn't like it. And so I got a chance to do a 1 day job shadow at Cleveland Metro Park Zoo. Longer story, I ended up getting a really cool opportunity to do a 1 day, like extra intense job shadow with the keeper. And I worked my tail off and he actually threw his back out that day. And so I had to do his job for him. And so he was so thankful that he let me come back. And Cleveland Zoo didn't let people intern that were younger than, I think, 19 at the time. And so it was a crazy cool opportunity, but I just worked my tail off and slowly got to work in all the different areas at Cleveland, everything except for elephants. And then that led to me getting hired. And so I guess the reason to share that story is you never know what individual opportunity is going to pan out. And so work your tail off every single chance you get and ask really good questions, and don't ever be afraid to ask a question. Um, my old dating philosophy was the worst you get is a no. So I didn't mind asking. I'm married now, thank the Lord. But never be afraid to ask, right? The worst thing you're going to get is a no. So ask the question, ask somebody for an opportunity. And then when you get that opportunity, take every single possible advantage of it and work your tail off. And then that's kind of how things build. And I never would have imagined what I do now is even a job. I'm incredibly fortunate to do what I do. And that was all just from working hard and asking questions and being a trusted person that others would vouch for. So anyways, that's kind of it. And then maybe the last thing I'll say is when you think about zoo careers or careers in the conservation field, there's the typical zookeeper stuff, which is awesome. And I loved it and I miss it. And there's, maybe the education role, which is incredible and super cool and really needed. But there's also all sorts of other options. And I think you're going to hear about a number of more of those types of options. But there's a lot of other things you can do in and around the zoo field or the conservation field that are so impactful and so needed and allows you to kind of really blossom in what you're uniquely gifted for. Because I got attacked by a lot of animals, so maybe being a zookeeper wasn't the best option for me. So, okay, I think that's all I've got, Shelly.
All right. Thanks, Mike. I can concur. I have many a scar and a tale to tell, so I very much understand. I too started at the Cleveland Metro Park Zoo. Maybe we should send them a present or something. Who knows? Anyway, we're going to hand it over to Audrey, and she is going to tell us all about her awesomeness. Take it away, Audrey.
Thanks so much, Shelly, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Audrey Eisenhower. I am the Education Director at Squam Lakes Natural Science Center in Holderness, New Hampshire, and we are an AZA accredited institution. We're probably one of the smaller institutions compared to most of the zoos that are here. We describe ourselves more as a zoo through the woods kind of. We're very much as much nature center as we are zoo. We exhibit native New Hampshire wildlife, and they're all in natural enclosures alongside a trail through the woods, which is the main reason people come to visit us. As the education director, exhibits is just one small part of what I do. We're pretty unique in our process for designing exhibits here. We do most of that work in-house with our team of staff. So our animal care staff are very involved in terms of what the animals need when we're building a new exhibit. Our facility staff is very involved because they end up doing a lot of the construction work, both of the enclosures where the animals are, but also of the hands-on interactive exhibits. And our education team is very involved in designing the messaging and how we're delivering it. So it's a really fun and creative process, but it's also something we do on top of everything else that we do. So we never quite have as much time as we want for it, but that's probably true for everything everyone does. So our mission here at Squam Lakes Natural Science Center is to advance the understanding of ecology by exploring New Hampshire's natural world. And our live animal collection is one of our primary vehicles for doing that. And the hands-on exhibits we have associated with those animals is what brings the content and the message out to people after they connect with the natural world through viewing and those opportunities to see those animals up close. So all the education work we do is in direct fulfillment of our mission, and our exhibits is certainly a part of that. My personal journey to this position, so my background is I was a high school student who loved science, and that was always something I gravitated towards, and had some really great science teachers that got me excited about it. Went on to pursue a degree in wildlife biology. Had no idea what I was going to do with that degree. Seasonal fieldwork didn't seem like a great career choice. And stumbled upon environmental education and realized I could combine working with kids, which was something I did in summer camps and enjoyed, and the wildlife and the science. And so pursued a career in environmental education and went on to get a master's in environmental education and another one in elementary education, and have been on that path ever since. I have a few pictures, so I think I'm going to share my screen and show you a little bit. Sorry. Can y'all see that? Okay, great. So just some of our animal enclosures with our native wildlife, where kids get a great opportunity just to look up close and personal at some of our different animals. And then the exhibits that we have just give kids an opportunity to interact. We try to make them really hands-on, and like I say, we make things in-house, which is a really creative and fun process for us, and collaborative across multiple departments. This is in our otter exhibit with these hearphones, and kids get to hear from a biologist and a kid and a trapper about their connections to otters. This is another exhibit about what coyotes eat and don't eat. They eat everything. The answer is always yes. So just giving kids an opportunity to really explore and engage and learn as much as possible while they're here. Right now, we are designing and building a brand new raptor exhibit, which will open in May of 2021. And so that's been a multi-year process, and we're not only designing the enclosures and constructing them, but what's the messaging we want people to leave with when they walk away from this exhibit? What do we want them to be thinking about? What kind of questions do we want them to be asking? And hopefully we're inspiring them to learn more. So it's a really fun aspect of my job because it's very creative. It's always different. There's problem solving to be done. There is, opportunities that are different with every project and every exhibit that we construct, and to work with a whole team of staff that we don't interact with every day. My undergraduate degree, sorry, I saw a question just pop up, was from Humboldt State University in Northern California. I did my master's at Utah State University in Logan, Utah, and one at Plymouth State University in New Hampshire. Thanks.
Thank you, Audrey. We are now going to switch over to Judith.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. I am going to share my screen. I'm Judith Coates. I am Interpretation Supervisor at San Diego Zoo Global. And San Diego Zoo Global includes the San Diego Zoo, the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, and also our research Institute for Conservation Research. So let me share my screen, and here's my little friend. We'll have to have a quiz to see who knows what that is. Okay. I am moving this over all my windows. As you can see, getting in here. Okay. Just do that. Okay. Let's go up to the top. Okay, so this should start. Can everybody see San Diego Zoo and San Diego Zoo Safari Park? So you can tell I've been practicing because it ended up on a slide that we're going to come to later, but let me just give a quick overview of the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. The San Diego Zoo opened in 1916, so it's 104 years old. Property-wise, it's about 100 acres. We have 3,500 animals across, representing over 650 species. We also have a world-renowned botanical garden and a lot of rare plants. San Diego Zoo has been voted #1 zoo in the world with 2 tourist organizations, TripAdvisor and also Tour Scanner. Before COVID, we were doing about 4 million guests per year. And we also have one of the largest nonprofit membership bases of 250, 250,000 members worldwide. So we are a big organization. Another part of our organization is the San Diego Zoo Safari Park that actually sits 30 miles north of the San Diego Zoo in Escondido. That one opened in 1972. It's actually 1,800 acres, but only about 100 acres are available to guests who come on site. All the rest of the acres are open fields. So this was actually established as a breeding park. We have multi-species exhibits, and we have giraffes running with rhinos, and big fields, as if you're out in Africa. We have about 2,600 animals representing more than 300 species there, and that park has about 2 million guests per year. So we're talking big. And my assignment for this presentation was to talk about interpretation, not necessarily exhibit design, but how we get our messages out to our guests. So we have kind of a multi-layer signage system at both the zoo and the park. We have what's called kind of generic or signage that goes across many different areas. We have what's called, this one right here is just a general species ID. We do not use, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the IUCN conservation status of animals. We have found that using that can be confusing. So we just have 3 right now: stabled, endangered, and threatened. So we use that one. So this is a full species ID. The one right down below with the gray-capped emerald dove, that one is a smaller ID. You can see it just has the common name and the species name. We have panels. This is one from our koala exhibit. It talks about reproduction. So we try to start our panels with some kind of title that will engage the reader. So they've got the goo that woos. So they have on their chest this area that secretes kind of oily-like substance, and that is an attractant to the female koalas. We also have bird IDs that slide into holders. We also have bird IDs that are what we call half size, so have a little bit more. And then these are stickers. So you can see that there's a wide range of both formatting and also content information. From there, we also have what we call theme signage. This is from our Australian Outback, Walkabout Australia at the Safari Park, which just won from AZA, one of the top exhibit awards. But you can see that this is definitely a departure from just a square sign. We've taken road signs and graffitied them. So it has multiple different messages in there. And then the one on the right is signage actually written on tools. So this is one of the gardens, World Gardens, and it's talking about plant survival. So we actually put content on objects. Another one that I wanted to show you. This is at the zoo. This is our Africa Rocks exhibit. We have large panels and we have many people coming up to the Tree of Life. This was done by one of our in-house illustrators. It took a while to sort out all the animals and know which ones are going up and which ones will not, but it's really a conversational starter for our guests. And that's what we want our signage to do. We want our signage to engage and also start conversations. The one on the right is for one of the subcategories to Africa Rocks, and that's the acacia woodlands. This is another multi-sensory type of signage, and that people come up to it, they can touch and feel it. The leopard at the top, they can't quite touch. Sometimes they touch the tail, but you also see the name of the part of the exhibit and then also the iconic plant for that one, and that's the acacia woodland. So what exactly is my role within that, all that signage that we have going on? I have multiple hats. One is strictly interpretation, and there's an organization called the National Association for Interpretation, and they defined it as a mission-based communication process that forges emotional and intellectual connections between interests of the audience and the meanings inherent in the resource. Now that is like a really long sentence, but basically what it is we present information to our guests as far as the animals, the environment, and also conservation. We try to do that in an engaging way, both through signage and also through one-on-one interaction with our volunteers. I also do new exhibit messaging, and I also do audience research. So audience research is where you engage with your visitors and see if they are absorbing the messages that you want. Every time we build a new exhibit, we have a set of key messages. What is it that we want our guests to walk away from? And the only way that you know if that is working or not is you have a survey, a one-on-one talk. For this particular exhibit, which is at Africa Rocks, we had GoPro cameras. So we gave them little baseball hats. We put the GoPro camera on top of their head, and we let them walk through the exhibit. So that way we had a visual of what they were looking at. We also had an audio of what they were talking about. So that was really cool. My background, I earned my undergraduate degree at UC Santa Barbara. My only regret for going to UC Santa Barbara is I was so enthusiastic and I just wanted to take all the courses that I got done in 4 years. And so looking back, I wish I had stretched it out a little, maybe 5. But anyway, I don't know if any of you are looking towards any UC systems to go to. My science teaching master's I completed through Montana State University on the Bozeman campus. And then I also have a science writing certificate that I found incredibly valuable. So what are the draws for working at the San Diego Zoo or at any zoo? The field of interpretation and exhibit design and conservation. Zoos and aquariums are now kind of in a transition phase from going to just, here's an animal, come and look at it, to being actively involved in conservation. How do we position ourselves? How do we motivate our guests to take a part, to go back to their lives after visiting and contribute to conservation, to be engaged with animals, whether it's locally or across the world. There's also never a typical day for me. Each week is different depending on projects and what I'm working on. I get to meet a lot of interesting people. It's very, and it's also very challenging work. I'm constantly learning new skills and new knowledge and new technology. The pictures here, the elephant one, the calf is our new little calf, Zuli. So it was amazing to see a calf being born. The image underneath that is one of our audience research. When we develop new content for a new exhibit, we oftentimes do mock-ups of our panels and let visitors pick and find out what engages them and what they like about it. We also have donors and sponsors. So the Planet Zoo is one that we have put out. And then the far right is just what they call an as-built or a shop drawing. So that was our Centennial Lion that went up on the top of our entrance to the zoo. What you can do to get involved or stay involved, I would highly encourage joining school clubs. You never know who you're going to meet, what you're going to learn, what new experiences it will expose you to. I would also, as we had said before, volunteer at zoos and aquariums. It's a great way to know very easily if a profession that you're interested in is valuable, if you're interested in it, or if like, no, that's not for me, I'm going to go in a different direction. Join professional organizations, and I put up a few logos. One that's very resourceful is the NAI, the National Association for Interpretation. There's also the International Zoo Educators Association, IZE. As we all know, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums also has a wealth of resources. One that I use with audience research is the Visitor Studies Association. There's also the Informal Science Educators, and then also the Science Writers. So all of those. And then my very last one is you got to have fun. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Judith. I absolutely agree. Fun is what it's all about. And when you're having fun, everyone around you is having fun and so much more engaged. So from educating our guests, fun is where it's at. I agree. All right, Libby, we are going to transfer over to you now.
All right. So hello, everybody. My name is Libby Nichols. I work at the Florida Aquarium down here in Tampa, Florida. My position is a senior biologist here. So I day-to-day take care of animals. That's my primary thing. I'm getting my arms wet, my hands wet, jumping in tanks, jumping out of tanks, feeding things. That's probably 80% of my job. Other than that, I consider myself a tinkerer, so I have gotten my hands in all sorts of things. Most importantly, the one that relates to you guys is I got the joy of helping to design and build our 1,200-gallon moon jelly touch tank here recently. So unlike zoos where everything's dry and you're worried about how it looks and how to move animals, we worry about how it looks, how to move animals, and then how to run water through everything as well and what that filtration looks like. So our design process is a little more involved. It's got a lot of, no pun intended, moving parts. And you're looking at a lot of calculations and how fast is this water going to move? How fast is that water going to move? What filtration options you want on it, and all sorts of other stuff. We do stuff in-house or out of house. So this last project with Moon Jelly Touch Tank, we did everything 100% in-house. Everything from graphics to building the wall to portion off the back area to picking which tanks we want. And then I actually got to plumb the whole thing myself, which was fun. So it's a good opportunity there. If we don't have the ability to do it in-house, then we'll contract design firms. If it's something bigger than what we can handle, we'll bring somebody in for that as well. Or we'll mesh the two. So we'll do some, they'll do some, and kind of go back and forth and work side by side with those kind of things. For me, I have a bachelor's degree in marine biology from the University of Tampa here. So I came to school here in Tampa and then never left. I like it here just that much. I did slow down. I didn't do it in 4 years. I did it in 5. So I would highly recommend that. I took the classes I wanted to take, which was nice. Never rush through it. You always learn other things. As far as like getting experience and stuff, I'll definitely kind of jump on the bandwagon of volunteer, intern, figure out what you want to do. In aquariums, there's a lot of different facets, just like there are with zoos. You know, we have a education staff that is dealing front facing with the guests and getting our mission out there directly and talking to everybody. You got the animal care team, which is more kind of behind the scenes, doing the grunt work and cleaning and scrubbing and diving and all the fun stuff. And then we have our life support department. Those are our plumbers, our guys that are doing the building. If we're making an exhibit, they're the ones that are helping build it for the most part. We've got all of our sign people, our graphics people that are responsible for making sure we have the right signs, they're updated, they show what's in that exhibit for the public to see. And many, many more. You know, we've got people that are just in charge of taking tickets and everything else. So there's a lot of different options in zoos and aquariums to get involved. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Libby. All right, we're going to hand it over to Norm.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. So I'm Chris Norman. I'm the Director of Capital Projects and Sustainability here at the Akron Zoo. I get to work with Shelley, a lot of the other staff. The role that I play here really is as capital projects. That means that I oversee the development of new exhibits, new construction here. So the large stuff. So right now we're wrapping up an $8 million project that is Wild Asia. And there was a phase 2. The first phase was Pride of Africa. So in aggregate, it was a $17 million project. It's a really big project for our park. And to do it, I work with all the different departments. So really, I'm a generalist. My background, it's fun to listen to everybody on the call. I have a history degree from Ohio University. I did it in 3.5 years. I really should have hung around. I finished my degree early so that I could go out and work on an organic dairy farm. I went out there when calves were starting the cows starting to calve, and learned firsthand, the city kid, I'm from Cleveland, how to farm, how to be an organic farmer. And I worked for National Audubon for about 7 years following that experience, and eventually went to school for, wait for it, urban planning. I have a master's degree in urban planning. So you might ask yourself, well, how does a history degree and an urban planning degree and organic dairy farming land you at a zoo? And the connection is there's land use, but there's also collaboration. So I really am working with the team here, whether it's education, of course, or animal care team, our facilities and grounds team, our guest services. We develop a concept for an exhibit. You know, identify a need in the park based on surveys that we've done in the community. And based on what the community have said that they would like to see here, we developed a concept. And then we developed that with an architecture firm. Once we've got the concept in mind, we get pricing. My job is to facilitate that and then to hire the architect to develop the concept further into actual documents. As we have the documents, the actual design pulling together, we hire the construction manager, and then I manage the project through to completion. But throughout that process, I draw on my experience, but also all of our team, to really make sure that we're getting the best product, the best exhibitry for our animals, the best guest experience we can. So it really draws on the team. So I don't know if there's a connection with calving or organic dairy farming, but it is environmental work. And that really drives the other side of my work here, which is sustainability. At the Akron Zoo, we have a green team, and the green team is also made up of the different departments. We've got representatives from all the different departments, and we are the stewards of the zoo's sustainability plan. So as we've talked about conservation in the call so far, the conservation and sustainability, the environmental work very much drives my own personal mission, but it's a way for our staff to really make sure that we are walking the walk. And as we've heard, you know, the work of zoos and aquariums has really evolved. And so the need for us to be not only providing the best quality habitats that we can for animals in our care, but also interpretive material for our guests, those firsthand experience, so that they can really connect with the conservation work that we are about. And the sustainability team, the green team, helps us to make sure we're walking the walk. So as we develop the projects, as I mentioned, Wild Asia, there's all kinds of interpretive material in there, but just the way that we have created it is done in the most environmentally sensitive way. And we use third-party verification, leadership in energy and leadership in environmental design, LEED, is another way to kind of verify. So it's a way for us to walk the walk. As I mentioned, the reason I think that, my background, et cetera, the reason I think that a team should consider my particular field, I guess you'd say exhibit design or construction management, I find it really invigorating. I'm a generalist. I'm curious about all these different fields, but to actually work with the specialists who can go very, very deep on all the different behaviors that a Sumatran tiger has, and the reasons for the different ways in which we can design so that we ensure those cats in particular are healthy and happy. They're going to display their natural behaviors in a way that will be most interesting to our guests and help our guests to really connect with the conservation work that we're doing. I really enjoy it. It's a way for us also to make sure that our work is the best stewarding of the public dollars, because while we are a private not-for-profit, we also have tax support here, which means that households are paying a tax, and that helps our operations. And so all the conservation work that we do, the green team, to reduce our water consumption, reduce our energy consumption, most recently our waste diversion program, all of those things that we're doing help reduce our footprint and helps keep our ticket prices down and provides the best value for our guests. But ultimately, if we do it right, we're sending that message, we're showing the actions that really connect conservation, not just here in Akron, but with our global partners. So I think it's really worthwhile for me anyway. Advice that I would have for teens, I really think that the comments we've heard from some of our other presenters are spot on. The hard work, making connections. I mean, all of us here are now part of your connections. So whether it's through email or other ways, through the websites, different ways you can reach out to us. I know for me, I've had lots of support. I had internships, volunteer opportunities that I took on just to make inroads and understand more about different opportunities. And that's really, I think, a great opportunity for anybody. And when you get those opportunities, just pour everything you got into it. Be very responsible and show up when you say you're going to be there. And as Michael was indicating, boy, the world will open up for you because people will see that you're sincere and that you are hardworking, and they're going to want to support that. So, as I say, make those connections and reach out, even if it's for an informational interview. I think there's lots of ways in which you can learn more. That's really kind of where it's at. As I say, my role is a little different as a generalist, but it's great because zoos and aquariums are like little cities, and so we have to deal not only with our habitats that we create and all the guest service and interface, but there's also the neighborhood in which we're situated in. So there's a lot of interaction that we're doing, our interpretive work, et cetera, that we're doing in the community, and things that we're doing on sustainability have been tapped into by some of our other area partners. Hospitals, universities, for-profits have reached out to us on composting, for example. It's something that we're really proud of. Diverting our organic waste from the park has enabled us to reduce costs on tipping and our waste bills, but ultimately creates compost, which now we can use to grow pollinator habitat and native landscaping, and ultimately food for animals in our care, and through collaboration, even working with community gardens for food security. So, like I say, there's a whole world here in zoos and aquariums, and I encourage you to dig in, and excited to hear and see what you guys do in the future. So thanks again for the invite.
Thanks, Norm. All right, so what we are going to do now is I'm going to launch our last poll and then open up for Q&A. We do have a couple questions coming in, but I am going to go ahead and launch our poll. Nope, having some challenges. All right, we'll go this way. Okay, if you could go ahead and answer our poll questions. It's on a scale of 1 to 10 of how much information that you had. So our first question is for Mike. And one of our participants is really interested in architecture and biomimicry, and she immediately perked up when you mentioned it. Can you talk a little bit more about how you can incorporate biomimicry into habitat design?
That's a good question. I think Norma can probably chime in on some of this too. Where we look at it, I mean, biomimicry is a pretty broad study. In reality, it's just how can nature and animals inform the way that we design things? I mean, that's kind of the easiest way to understand it. So sometimes that looks like, I would say maybe a cool example was we've done a couple of rainforest projects where we're actually trying to create a living system inside of the building. Instead of the traditional animal exhibit is essentially a sterile space that then the keepers are responsible for enriching that area. So in the wild, what nature teaches us is nature's constantly moving and adapting and changing, and then animals are responding to those changes. So maybe we can learn from nature to create spaces that are dynamic, that are actually kind of forcing the animals to learn and change and adapt, which is a very different way of thinking than how we've done zoo exhibit design in the past. So that's kind of a slightly different way, but I think that's exhibit design informed by nature's natural systems. But Norm, I don't know if I'm seeing you nod your head.
No, I think that's great, Mike. I mean, when we talk about natural resource use here, whether it's water or energy, all these, just how we're utilizing the sun, I think about biomimicry. Now, there's real in-depth work on biomimicry, of course, but just as far as natural behaviors and things, in addition to the enrichment work that we do, how we're laying out our facilities so that we are absorbing water on site, recapturing water, gray water, using daylight for lighting spaces. All those things add not only quality to the guest experience, but obviously for the animals in our care, and it reduces our operating costs. We're trying to come up with ways to utilize the location in which we are in. And when you start to look at your facility and your design from that perspective, it opens up all kinds of opportunities. Draws on your creativity.
Thanks, Norm. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share our results. Awesome. We went from a 4 to an 8. So thank you very much, panelists, for sharing your awesomeness with everyone. Much appreciated. Norm, we have a question for you in the chat box. What would you say has been the most detailed habitat that you've worked on?
Well, so I mean, we had a series of habitats that the staff did in Curious Creatures, and there's several micro exhibits, but so far I'm going to say gibbon has been the most detailed. The white cheek gibbon. Now it's not complete yet, as I say. We're going to open this spring, but between the indoor, the day room, and now the outdoor habitat has a tree. There's a column. It's fully enclosed, but there's a steel column in the middle that holds up all of the containment. That column has been themed using rock work, so it looks like a big tree. And the limbs have been decorated so that the gibbon can go onto that tree and explore all the different aspects. Let's see if I can take a picture, if I could share my screen. But the different angles, this habitat in particular, you can actually view it all the 360 degrees. So there's the lower viewing, but then when you come up to the upper portion, and then ultimately the tree house. The tree is central, but from it we have multiple ways for the white cheek gibbon to locomote. We've got fixed areas for them to work from, the platforms, etc. But then sway poles that are going to be installed. There'll be so there's just different textures and motions that I think we're going to add greatly to the enrichment, not only for for the guests to see, but of course for the gibbon to experience. It's something that has never been done before in our little zoo, and Michael's firm GLMV really helped us with the design for that. But it's really taken us to task. I mean, we're excited, but it's been a lot of work.
Thank you. Our next question is for Judith, also from the chat. Judith, how did you end up at the San Diego Zoo? Were you an intern first, or you employed? How'd that work out?
I had a very windy career path. I spent all my jobs had been in San Diego. So I graduated from UC Santa Barbara with aquatic biology because the ocean is my first love. So I went to work for SeaWorld during the early 80s, and I wanted to be a trainer, but I got into education. I got bit by that teaching bug, and I love the informal education. So I spent 18 years there. And from there, I went on to Birch Aquarium at Scripps, which is part of Scripps Institution of Oceanography, part of UC San Diego. So I did school programs there for about 6 years. And then the position at San Diego Zoo opened. It was actually a new position. So zoos, when they do new exhibit design or signage or whatever else like that, they kind of have a choice. Do you have an in-house talent that you do your writing and your layout and everything else like that? Or do you go out to a vendor and contract with a vendor and have them do it? The zoo had been going outside for quite a while, and some of the exhibits had not been the culture and the messaging and everything else can sometimes be really difficult if you go to an outside vendor to get them into your culture. So they were looking to build an in-house graphic design department. And so I am the one little teeny tiny arm of interpretation to the big design. So that's how I got in there. And that was just connection and word of mouth. We really think you'd be good for this job, apply. So definitely get out there, keep your connections. That's why I say professional organizations, clubs, anything that you can do just to keep your, ears and eyes open. Yeah.
Thank you. And then we're wrapping up. We have a couple more questions, but before we end, Judith, what kind of mantis is in your background? It's very popular.
I do. I must admit, I don't know the genus and species. It is a praying mantis, but that's as far as I go.
Fair.
But okay. I can email it to you so you can add it on to the Zoom notes if you like.
Perfect. Thank you. And then I have a question for Libby and Audrey. Is there any part of your job where you study the animal behavior in their habitats before you welcome them to the zoo? And would you recommend if a student would be able to study biology, land, or marine? And what's the best way to go about that as a 12-point question?
So from our seat at an aquarium, we do a lot of diving just by nature. So I do a lot of scuba diving. I'm a scuba instructor. I take people out a lot. So we get to see a lot of what we have on exhibit naturally while we're out just doing recreational diving. So I tend, while I'm out, I watch the fish, watch what they do, watch who schools with who doesn't like who, those sorts of things. And then when we're looking at making a habitat here, we take all that into account. In the wild, do these fish like to hide under rocks, or do they like to swim up in the water column? Do they like lots of space, or do they like to just live in their hole and not move anywhere? Those sorts of things. So we take all that into account when we're designing, planning, and thinking about a habitat here.
A similar thing on our end. Most of us, our free time is spent outside and observing wild animals whenever we have the opportunity. But when we are designing an exhibit from the animal enclosure point of view, we want to consider the animal's natural, natural environment they would live in the wild. What are their natural food sources? What are their natural behaviors? How can we provide an environment that will stimulate those behaviors and enrich those animals as much as possible? So knowing their natural history is not only important for our education side, because that's a lot of the information we're communicating to people to help inspire them to learn more and do more, but also comes into play with how do we provide the best possible wellness for these animals. So that's certainly a part of the research that we do. We don't too much get paid to go out and do observations, but
Makes sense. All right, well, we have reached 4 o'clock and that is our time limit. So we do have a few more questions in the Q&A and in the chat box. I will email you guys those questions and include your answers when we send everything out for the teens. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Virginia Zoo, for hosting our Zoom webinar. And thank you to all of our 5 fabulous, amazing panelists. I appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you so much. And have a great day, everybody. And thank you, teens, for
Thanks, y'all.
joining us.
Thank you, Shelley.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody.
Good luck, y'all.